Hey guys, I'm back with another RX 480 video. This time we're checking out Crossfire performance to see how two of these $240 GPUs compare with Nvidia's higher end GPUs such as the 980 Ti, 1070, and just for the hell of it, the much more expensive GTX 1080. If you haven't already checked out my RX 480 overview video, benchmark video, and overclocking video, be sure to check those out as well. In short, the strongest attribute of the RX 480 has been its cost per dollar ratio, which sees it just managed to outclass the $260 discounted GTX 970 graphics cards getting around at the moment. AMD have been working hard to improve Crossfire scaling and frame pacing for some time now, so I thought why not serve up the 23 games I tested in the main benchmark video to see how the RX 480 Duo gets on. Of the 23 games we test with, the RX 480 Crossfire cards were broken in just 6 of them. Those games included Just Cause 3, Rainbow Six Siege, Batman Arkham Knight, Anno 2205, Doom, and surprisingly Hitman. Of course, most of these games don't support SLI either, so we're happy to give AMD a pass for these titles. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to gather the frame time results for all of the graphics cards tested, so I'll only be providing that information for the Radeon RX 480 Crossfire to be compared with a single RX 480. I'll talk about the results for a few of the more interesting titles in the benchmark section next, but you'll be able to find the full results for all games tested at our website, hardwareunboxed.com. I'll also be commenting on how the games played with Crossfire enabled in the conclusion. For a full list of the test system specs, please check the video description where you'll also find a detailed video index. The results in The Witcher 3 were interesting for a few reasons. First of all, the average frame rate produced by the Crossfire cards was massive. It even eclipsed the 1080. The problem is the massive discrepancy in frame pacing. As you can see, the 1% frame time in Crossfire mode was 20 frames below the minimum, which made for a very jittery playing experience. It was very annoying to play with. Far Cry Primal was another game where the Crossfire 480s performed really well, with 88% scaling. This allowed the average to again just beat out the GTX 1080, and this time the frame pacing was a lot more consistent. Here the 1% frame time was within 8 frames of the minimum, meaning the minimum was just 15% higher. This made for a smooth playing experience. Compared to the 1070, the pair of 480s was 30% faster here too. Rise of the Tomb Raider was a title where the 480s didn't perform overly well. Here the performance scaled only 52%, meaning the 1070 was within 1% and they were 24% slower than the GTX 1080. Thankfully though, gameplay was smooth as the 1% frame time was within 7% of the minimum frame rate. GTA 5 was another game where performance was both impressive and smooth. The team of RX 480s scaled by a fantastic 87%, meaning it was just 17% faster than the single 1070 and 9% behind the much more expensive 1080. Frame rates were smooth as a milkshake here too, with frame times within 4% of the minimum. Fallout 4 was a bit of a letdown in terms of Crossfire performance. Despite 71% scaling, gameplay was very jittery, so the 12% advantage over the 1070 didn't mean much. Hopefully this can be improved for the Fallout 4 fans soon. The last game I'll discuss here is Arma 3, where Crossfire scaled to the tune of 92%. Extremely impressive stuff, though it was only 5% faster than the 1070 and 13% slower than the 1080. Thankfully, gameplay was really smooth here too, so AMD and Arma fans will be wrapped. On average, we saw a total system power consumption of 437 watts when gaming. This was up from the 235 watts of the single card and 240 watts of the GTX 1070. A lot of gamers couldn't give two stuffs about how much power the rig uses when gaming, but I think it's an important factor to consider that the cards will use 85% more power than the 1070 system. Honestly, I've never been much of a fan of multi-GPU technology, SLI or Crossfire. When I spend hundreds of dollars on a product or products, I kind of want it to just work, and in the past this technology has never been extremely well polished. This is still kind of the case, as there were those 6 games that I mentioned where multi-GPU tech is simply broken. However, I was impressed that out of my 23 game gauntlet, 17 of them did work, and most of them worked really well. Of the 17 games, there were 9 where scaling was over 75%, which is a great result. I also found 13 of them really smooth to play, with the exceptions being The Witcher 3, Black Ops 3, Star Wars Battlefront and Fallout 4. The other good news is that the single card RX 480 provided extremely smooth performance, with the 1% frame time falling within 5% of the minimum frame rate on average. This variance did increase to 20% with Crossfire enabled, but this includes the games that I found quite jittery. Now a lot of you will be interested in how these cards fared against the GTX 1070 in particular. With two RX 480s, performance was on average 14% faster than our single card results with the 1070, where it was 35% slower without its twin. Out of interest, if you take away the games where performance was jittery, this average didn't change. So I suppose for around the same money you can get slightly better performance from this pair of AMD cards. However, keep in mind there are some major titles where you'll be stuck with single card performance and some others where the gameplay is far from smooth. I said I'd compare with the 1082, where one-on-one the RX 480 was 47% slower. Turning the contest to American doubles with Crossfire, the 480s were now on average just 9% slower. This performance boost will come with all of the same caveats previously mentioned though, of course. Still an impressive result given the RX 480 cards cost just $480, while the GTX 1080 will set you back in excess of $600. So honestly, Crossfire performance was a lot more impressive and reliable than I'd expected, though I'd still like to see some more improvements made. Some of these titles mentioned, where Crossfire is flat out broken or jittery, are very popular games, and if it came down to choosing between the slightly faster overall dual 480s or the reliable and consistent 1070, then I'd honestly be leaning towards the faster single GPU option, as I always have. I'd just like to be able to know that my expensive hardware is going to work well with virtually every game. What do you guys think of the 480 Crossfire results? Are they better than you expected? Let me know in the comments, hit subscribe if you haven't. I'm your host Matt as always, and I'll see you guys next time. YouTubers like me depend on your support to continue improving the quality and content of our videos. To support the channel directly, consider becoming a patron to also get access to a heap of cool rewards and exclusive giveaways. Also, don't forget you can check prices and buy the products I looked at in this video through the Amazon links in the video description below. Thank you kindly for supporting me and the Hardware Unboxed channel. It means a lot to me and I really do appreciate it, and in return I'll continue to work as hard as I can to keep producing the content you enjoy.